all of it. I could talk about this. I might as well go get my doctorate talking about this stuff.
Right.
At this point,
The thing about Black
you
women
know,
always going back to get degrees.
You already told me not to, but I swear,
We're bored one day and we're like, you know what? Let me go get
girl,
another
I was
degree.
thinking about it today. I was like, I might go get another degree. I had a dream about it too. I was like, but Jackie ain't gonna let me do it.
No, and I've said the same thing. I've been like, I want to get I want to get another degree in African American studies.
Girl, do it. Don't do it.
With what money, Coco?
We're gonna figure it out.
Hello, Pod, and happy Thursday. If this is your first time listening and or watching, welcome to the Representation in Cinema podcast. We talk about the films that center the stories of Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples, as well as on the film industry itself. I'm not only your host, but I'm also the founder, director, and co-producer of Our Voices Project, a production company that shares the stories and lived experiences of Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples through visual storytelling and truth-telling. We are community-engaged filmmakers who firmly believe that you cannot center the stories of Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples without also being in community and in solidarity with them. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure y'all go ahead and hit that subscribe button and also the little bell to get notified about new episodes. And if you're listening on your preferred podcast platform, make sure that y'all hit follow, give us 5 stars. And if you like this episode, please feel free to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought. Tonight marks the beginning of our Black August series, where we talk about the films that highlight Black resistance, freedom fighters, and political prisoners. Black August was created in solidarity with freedom fighters and political prisoners in San Quentin State Prison in California, including published author, Black Panther activist, and field marshal and thought leader George Jackson, who was killed by prison guards in 1971, among others. This month is not only a time to learn about the movements, uprisings, and revolutionaries from our past, but to also continue to work as a collective and in solidarity with community organizers and grassroots groups towards Black liberation. As filmmakers, it's our duty to share stories of those who fought and are still fighting against and outside of destructive systems, whose very existence disrupts those systems. Hollywood is one of those entities using film as a medium to stereotype, dehumanize, and to maintain the status quo for Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples. All month long, we'll be sharing and reflecting on these stories here on the Representation in Cinema podcast. Tonight, we're diving into Daughters of the Dust. Directed by Julie Dash, Daughters of the Dust follows the Gullah Geechee Bazant family on Ebo Landing, South Carolina, as they prepare to migrate north. Nana Bazant, the aged matriarch, refuses to migrate and frets over the possibility of broken family ties and lost traditions. Joining us on the podcast tonight is Coco Ray David, who I think at this point is no longer a guest, because that's fam, regular on the pod. But of course, for those of you who don't know Coco Ray David, we're going to fix that right now. She's a New York-based visual artist, curator, photographer, filmmaker, and business owner of Coco Ray LLC, who creates captivating portraits and art of unique and diverse people and captures their true essence. Welcome back to the pod, Coco.
Thank you for having me again.
She's like shaking your head as I'm giving the
I appreciate you.
I can never not be serious. So thank you again for being here. And let's get into the discussion. Okay, so Coco, was this your first time watching? And if so, what was your initial reaction?
Yeah, it was. Well, yes, it's my first time watching the film, but it was on my list of films to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard so much about the film over the years, and I've been on this watching film kick. Because, I mean, you know what? It's been rewarding because I feel like seeing other directors and filmmakers' perspectives on films, whether it comes from historical evidence or just reference to like just creating stuff from their mind. I love it because it gives me a chance to see where their heads are at. But this film it really kind of, it hit home with having family members and ancestry from the Carolinas. You know, my dad's from North Carolina. My mom, she's from here, but her mother's from Charleston, South Carolina. I did my schooling down there and really learned so much. So seeing this film was just a reminder of the work I was able to like do down in Low Country, Chucktown, you know, the different names, but also like there was so much like it made me really think about my family lineage and the term the North, like
Mhm.
learning so much about that and being I'm the cousin from the North,
Mm.
and talking about that, but seeing from the film what they thought was the North and having relatives that stay behind. Like I have relatives that stayed in the South,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean they don't visit, but they live down there. That's
Right.
where their kids are, their
Mhm.
grandkids, their great grands, all of it. But because of my family, the North was where they went, and I
Mhm.
was like, "Whoa!" Like there's so much. So yeah.
Yeah.
How did you feel? Like, was this your first time watching the film?
Oh,
Or
yeah. Oh, yeah. This is my first time. I heard about this. I think it was right after, because of course we always bring it up, Sinners. It was right after Sinners, so people were talking about more films that touch on those, like, those African spirituality, the traditions, those customs, and you're talking about that in film, and so some people were mentioning Daughters of the Dust, and I had heard about that because I was researching other Black filmmakers, and Julie Dash's name comes up, and there's Daughters of the Dust. So it's something I'd always kind of like heard about. And then so finally being able to actually sit down and talk about the film, and watch the film, I was just like, first of all, blown away because I'm sitting here and it's not the kind of like you watch an older movie, you watch a movie from the 90s,
yep.
right? And you look at the film and you go, yeah, this is definitely from the 90s. This is not what I got from that movie at all. It's like, and of course it is a classic. It
Mhm.
is a classic film, but it's like one of those that, whenever we get those lists that are like, these are the films that you need to watch, and it's usually something that's centered not on
Mhm.
Black women, right?
Yeah.
Which is what this movie is doing. But it's there's a certain look that it has to it. It has that like that timely it it's timeless. It has that
Yeah.
timeless feel,
Yep.
and so I'm looking at this and I'm going, "This is incredible." Just the look, the colors, the just the way that the camera moves, everything about it just yells classic film. Like, this
Yeah.
should be in, like, this is, like, one the pantheon of great films. It should be right up there with, The Godfather, people.
Yeah.
Like,
I see, yeah, because especially with, like, the way it was shot with, like, lighting, the
yes.
the way they play with, colors and,
Yeah.
like, white, that was something I always loved about living in Charleston. It was, like, the way people who are local, like, they
Mhm.
come towards the water and they're always wearing white. I have my own
Mhm.
personal thing with the color white, but white is such a very healing color, and
Mhm.
there's so much behind it. Seeing Black folks in white, it's, like, ethereal. I can't
Mm,
explain it,
mhm.
and also, like, the way everything was, like, I don't know why, it's, like, wide. Did you feel like it was, like, a
Yeah.
wide, yeah, like,
Yeah.
wide like, I know that was the probably intentionality, was, like,
Right.
the wideness of it, but it was just the way they play it with principles of a design, like,
Yeah.
emptiness in some frames,
Mhm.
fullness of
Right.
other frames.
Right.
Like, even when the girls playing near the beach and just in white, and they're dancing, and I'm just like and singing songs like
This mhm.
sisterhood, it's like
Sisterhood, freedom,
yeah,
liberation, they're just
for
existing.
yes,
Just existing.
yeah, and even just not even just that, but, like, seeing different like, the matriarch we could talk about that all day because I feel like, especially as, like, people who are raised by mom, matriarch, we
Yeah.
understand
Oh, yeah.
the gravity of that and trying to hold on to things, especially, like, having elders, like, how
Mhm.
much our elders have they play a huge role in just keeping history, but
Mhm.
also presenting the past,
Yes.
the future, looking at the future and where things are going to go, how is it going to progress. There's so much behind it, and even just watching it from the first time, there was just so much information. Where it's
Mhm.
just like the
Mhm.
storytelling,
Whew.
the way I loved the way they told story, like the voices, the way they told stories. It was very it's folklore.
Yeah,
Like there's
it
so
is.
many different levels to it. It isn't just one voice.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
layered voices from like the unbirthed child to
Yes.
like
Yes.
the matriarch to even just the men, like the roles. There's so much.
There's so much. We're gonna get into all of that, of course. So I want to talk because we started to talk about a little bit. And this is what we do. We're both filmmakers. This is literally what we geek out about. This is what we do. So I wanted to get into the filmmaking process. There was, as you said, there's a lot. There's so much in this, and I'm gonna go down the list. And of course, feel free to interrupt me if there's anything that you're like, Jack, we need to talk about more about this. Julie Dash, the director of the film, wanted to do a film about African Americans that was authentic to Geechee culture. That's the culture that she actually comes from as well. So she wanted to pay homage to that. Folks at AFI, the American Film Institute, they had told her originally when she was thinking about this, and this was 10 years before she actually shot, edited, all that stuff with it. They told her that it had already been done before, and she was like, "Nope, no, it hasn't." So she started working on it. As far as, the cinematography, the coloring, the question that she really asked was, how can we do what's never been shown, right? And so a lot of the references that you see on screen are coming from she consulted diasporic communities, so folks in West Africa, also folks, from that culture. A lot of different, like I said, across the diaspora, a lot of voices that are chiming in and giving their knowledge, as far as, the clothes to use, so many of the customs that you see, like, being done, by the matriarch, all of these things. She also loved and watched a lot of foreign films before making the film. She really wanted the film she wanted it to feel like when you're watching it to, and I definitely did this while watching it, question whether or not it was actually something that was taking place in America, because it felt like that. It felt like a foreign film, but I'm like, "No, this is here. This American soil, like, that we're talking about," like, which was incredible. Here's the thing, and we're gonna give a little shade to Kodak.
All the shade.
All the shade. Because, I mean, we're from Rochester, we can do that. So she used for, again, for the coloring, so she used German film stock due to the high contrast between the white that they're wearing, also the white beaches versus, like, the darker skin tones, right? Now, she couldn't use Kodak. She said this in an interview. She couldn't use Kodak because how it reads shadows, it reads them as blue and green. And
Mm.
so there were other films that she had watched at that time, like, I think there was something with, oh, I forget the actress, the black actress, but she was saying, like, she came off on the screen as blue, like, she looked blue in the movie, she didn't want that. And because that's the way that Kodak reads shadows, it was also going to be the way that it reads darker tones. So she was like, we cannot have that. So she decided to use instead, or find a film stock that would actually give her those colors. This was all shot in natural light because, so where they shot was right on location. They because of preservation laws at the time, they weren't allowed to bring anything with four wheels, so they couldn't bring any lights. They actually used reflectors. One of the things that I was just like, "That's nuts," was just about like not being able to use lights, so doing all of that and just natural. I mean, if you're not someone who's familiar with, the filmmaking process, lighting is like 90% of the thing. So,
Yep.
like, you really have to know, first of all, the cinematographer, who was Arthur Jaffa on the film. It was really Julie Dash and Arthur Jaffa, who's the cinematographer, as well as the production designer, or I think it was the art director. Production designer was, Carrie Marshall, and I will look up in a second, who the art director was. But they all worked together to try to figure out what times, we were trying to figure out what time of day, is going to be the best. And of course, like, you don't, when you're outside, the lighting is harsh and everything like that. So trying to figure all of that out without being able to bring on anything with four wheels, all of that equipment that you have. It's like, that's some guerrilla filmmaking right
Yep.
there. It's crazy. The color palette that they used, what that was very also intentional. That was indigo, and you'll see a lot of references to indigo in the film, because that's what was used in during chattel slavery. That was what indigo was what was making colonies money at the time. So Julie intentionally used that indigo. They also had some problems with, filming because Hurricane Hugo,
Yep. Category 4.
yeah, hit while shooting, and so they actually, when they got back to resume shooting, they ended up. Julie says they ended up using, like, there was fallen trees everywhere. She just was like, you know what, we're just gonna go with the flow. That's just gonna be part of the story now. There was. I also thought this was funny. So the composer for the film, John, it was John Barnes. she told him not to use any harmonica or banjo in any of the score, and the reason for that is because she at that point seen so many films where, anytime there's something set in the South,
Mm.
it has to feature somebody on a banjo. It has to be a harmonica. She's like, "Don't put any of that into the score,
No,
please."
for real.
And then so there was that. I think I mentioned before, so the white dresses, and we can also talk more about that because when you're talking about how ethereal they all looked. So she ended up using like old pictures in order to make the decision, people on the island. A lot of that again was like coming from diasporic communities. And then of course when we talked about the story of the style of storytelling, she said she used what she calls her griot structure, recalling and recounting a family's history.
Yep.
She didn't want any part of this to be the European standard, the Europeanized version of how we usually tell stories in films. So, yeah, if there was anything in that. So there's like I said, there's a lot. So you just got again, because we're filmmakers and we're nerdy about this stuff. I wanted to point all of that out because again, there's number one, there's so much, of course, that goes into a film. You can't do films without collaborative efforts, but then also all of the research, right? All the research, all the community, right? That all of them would have had to establish prior to making the film to make it authentic to Geechee culture. So much that goes into that. Any thoughts?
All of it. I mean, especially going back to what you said about the way everything was shot. The first thing I thought about was like time, and how everyone interprets time so differently. And
Mhm.
you said the film was timeless, which seeing the film for the first time was so interesting because like it's supposed to be dated
Yeah,
a bit with like the crossover between going from the old world into like this new world of
yeah,
like
yeah,
acceptance and progression and freedom and stuff.
yeah.
It just made me think about how we're constantly in this constant loop of that,
Mhm.
like time. It's interesting just the way that they're on this island. Like it's
Mhm.
like faraway land
Yeah.
island, and of course, being in Charleston, seeing the beaches they have.
Mhm.
I was visually thinking about those beaches as
Mhm.
like seeing beyond just like it's being in Rochester the lake
Mhm.
on the other side, but it's like no, this is like an ocean. So there was so much behind it, and then of course learning about the cinematography
Mhm.
from this and just seeing why they chose the film that they did because a lot of times film is experimentation and
Mhm.
finding what fits. So hearing how Kodak and the way that they have their process and thinking about, yeah, blues and greens, but we also have warm tones.
Mhm.
There's reds, there's yellows, there's
Mhm.
browns, and how that livens us up a little bit. There black folks aren't a monolith.
Right.
There's so much to that. And seeing
Mhm.
this film from like the most feminine to the most masculine to the
Mhm.
most spiritual to the most religious. Like it was a whole array of things suspended in time and kind of putting all those things together. Like thi this was amazing. And of course, thinking about Hurricane Hugo and living in Charleston, hearing about it, I'm just like, yeah, it made sense why it took so long, but the filmmaking was so important
Yeah.
just to see this story. And I'm so happy that we have films like this that we can just go back on or either watch for the first time or watch for the 100th time and
Mhm.
seeing where the storytelling comes from. And the storytelling for this reminded me of Is God Is. Remember how they were
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
telepathically
yeah.
talking and stuff? Like,
Yeah.
we need more narratives like that. We need
Mhm.
more askew, nonlinear ways of
Yes.
communication and telling stories. Like those, it kind of lets us know like English is, like the way the
Mhm.
language isn't linear. There's
Yeah.
so many different things behind it, the way we tell stories from one words to full sentences,
Right.
like all of it. So yeah.
And also too, it's like when I'm sitting there and I'm watching, it's we've been programmed, right, to expect stories like told in a certain way, even if they are like again, you know, following convention, right? Is
Hmm.
in terms of just filmmaking, it still sort of has like there's a rhythm, there's a cadence.
Yep.
This was like, no, you're on our time,
Yeah.
right? You're on our time. That's very much what it felt like. Cause I kind of had to like I kind of felt myself kind of adjusting to like, okay, this is definitely different, from
Yeah.
what I'm used to. and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, because again, we're talking about, we are the ones who are like watching this family kind of come to terms with so many different things, past trauma, history,
Mhm.
tradition, those ideas of progress and what
Yeah.
progress actually means. There's so many things, and so yeah, it really just like I said, it forces you to kind of be like, no, no, you're on our time now, like
Yeah.
so
I like that.
sit with us exactly. So I wanted to go through like because of course we're talking about Black August, we're talking about freedom fighters and liberation and Black resistance. What are some themes of resistance or some things, right, that speak to Black resistance that that you saw throughout the film?
I I think this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. It was the way we like spirituality.
Mhm,
Not gonna hold
mhm.
you.
Right? No, yeah, of
I'm
course.
not
I
gonna
knew
hold
I
you
knew
because I
that that
was
was it.
like seeing the elder, like the matriarch,
Mhm,
holding on to these traditions that she's known and that brought them to this island, and seeing like her own descendants kind of get completely go conform or like
mhm,
change with the way of the times. Like I thought about when they were kind of getting ready to leave and she binded the Bible,
mhm.
the Bible
Yes,
with some
yes.
stuff. And,
Yeah.
her daughters are like, she's saying prayers and everything and
Mhm,
just kind of like, I'm not doing that and
mhm.
everything. But the kids are like,
Right.
and then
Yeah,
seeing them kind of like abide by that,
yeah,
like, even if they
yeah.
didn't kiss, the one I thought about was the one who was on the boat coming in with the
Oh,
cousin,
Viola. Yeah,
Viola, yeah,
yeah,
and even just thinking about the roles of her and Olive on the boat,
yeah.
the dark skin, the fair skin, and the way everybody talks about each
Right,
other,
right,
and they
right, right.
address, like, what, Yellow Mare was it Yellow
Yellow Mary. Yeah.
Yellow Mare and
Oh,
then
we're gonna
Vi
talk
like,
about her soon. Yeah.
yeah, like, the way they talked about her and how she, because I feel like even just myself being the darkest out of my
Mhm,
family, my immediate family, but having sisters who are different complexions, like the way
mhm,
we kind of
mhm.
talk and address each other, but even how our aunts, our relatives
Yeah.
address each other and seeing them with their dynamic was so interesting. But you see, even with Viola being the darker complexion, she's the one who's like biblical.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
the way, and this
Right.
is the only way. Like this is it. But then her mother,
Yeah.
like, child, didn't we? You were, so it was interesting to see that
Mm.
with letting go and go, go sacrifice. Like
Mhm,
that's what I was getting a lot was sacrifice. Like what are you
mhm,
sacrificing for
mhm,
when it comes to leaving or
mhm.
staying? Like staying, you're not a part of the world. You're not gonna keep up with the world, you're gonna stay
Yeah.
with what's and what you've always known and what people
Mhm.
have been here for.
Right.
Versus when you leave, what are you giving up?
Right.
Family, ancestral
Yep.
lineage, spiritual out, like there's so much. So
Mhm.
it was kinda like family reunion where it was a
Mhm.
family reunion where
Yeah.
everyone's, like, coming in with all these things and not either addressing it or not addressing it, combating with it or conforming to it,
Right.
showing respect to it or not acknowledging it, you know?
Exactly.
And, of course, all of it was matriarchs, mothers,
Yes.
daughters, like, that's the thing I really liked about the
Yeah.
movie a lot was that, and not saying that the men weren't important or anything, but the center focus of a lot of these things is the root of the Black woman
Right.
and the roles, Black femininity, how do we approach the world, how the world sees us?
Yes.
How do we keep things going?
Mhm.
Combating what you're saying about this is how the way we've done it and this is how we're always gonna do it, But then it's like, I wanna change.
Mhm.
There's so much. So that's why I'm just like things that a lot of us are still facing to this day with talking to our relatives about traditions and sticking to those
Yes.
things. But
Ooh,
then when you
girl.
wanna branch off, are you woo woo or
Right,
are
right,
you
right, 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 yeah.
and it's like, but where were you but it's not just me because you've had this too, You've
Exactly.
stuck to your guns and you thought this was the way, but not giving people a chance to really branch off or come back to those things. It definitely gives me the prodigal son. Like it
Yes.
does. I'm just like, man, how many times that story has been told throughout and the way that they've dictated with Black femme, Black women, like Black identifying individuals and how we kind of have to navigate with
Yeah.
keeping things or letting things go. Like we're always constantly say sacrificing something. Why are we always
Mhm.
constantly sacrificing something instead of just keeping those things? And I know they obviously, like I said, Viola keeping her traditions of like, yeah, I may not go this route, but I'm gonna show my respect to my elder because that's my elder.
Yeah.
That's something that's never gonna go away, no matter
Yeah.
how much you may have your differences, but that's tradition,
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's like it's a especially the part about respecting our elders, you know, that is something that is like, oh, we talk about all the time, and I feel like as millennials, we talk about this all the time because it's like there are things that we were, we grew up with that notion of respecting your elders. So
Mhm,
there's, you pay respect to the people who have been here. They have
mhm.
the wisdom, they have the knowledge and all of these things. And at the same time, there are things that they're also holding on to that you're like, okay, but this is this is an old way of thinking and it's not
Yeah,
helping us. Like
yeah,
like maybe that's what you needed to do back then to survive,
yeah.
but like times have changed. We gotta kind of move.
And I feel like that's the other thing we forget. We how many times we reference spirit, spare the raw, spoil the child, but no one
Ooh,
talks about don't provoke
broke
the
your children,
child. So
listen.
look,
That's
we
a
could talk
whole other
about this. We
conversation.
could talk about this all day. But it's interesting to see what we hold on to and what we have to let go for things to survive.
Yes.
So it was a
Yeah.
good story, but it was very heartbreaking to see like those things of tradition of having to let go because of this, but
Yeah.
having to succumb to what comes with it, like the conformality of I
Right.
gotta be this presenting person of society,
Yes.
but I have to let go of what has kept us so long to survive for so long.
Yep.
It's so
Oh, it's
hard.
difficult. It's traumatic.
It
It's
is.
traumatic. And I think, like, focusing, like, having this be the focus, I think is like this, the focus being that of a family who is moving on, right? For that just to be the sole focus, that was more than enough.
Yeah.
Because there's so much as we've been talking about. And another thing about resistance, I want to talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
Eula.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about Eula and that speech that she gives towards the
I
end.
love that speech. I'm so happy she did it because, to be honest,
Yes.
that's how she is the emotional aspect of the family. That part was so vital because it's like, I need y'all to listen. No one's listening.
Right.
And she's the one who holds the most, like the whole, like she had so much with her. But I'm glad she said it because people needed to hear it. People were talking amongst themselves and not really talking. She's like, now that I got everyone's attention.
Right.
And of course, bringing in new life, like, you got to set the tone.
Yes. Yes. Because at some point she is going to be
The matriarch.
what, right. Exactly. But this thing about this idea of not being ruined,
Mhm.
right? Is someone, so in the story, of course, we're just at the this is after she was sexually assaulted by someone, and so there's the husband, he's struggling
Mhm.
with it because he looks at her as ruined, and then the
Mm.
two women who come, Yellow Mary and Trula, who
Yeah.
come, and the family has all the things to say about them. They
Mhm.
talk about, like, them being fast and them being whores and
Yeah.
and all these other things, right? Just and them being ruined,
Yeah.
right? And just for a little history lesson. So the thing with and we're talking about Yellow Mary.
Mm.
Yellow Mary and Trula were both, so they're Trula was not part of the family. She was just someone who was coming and,
Family friend.
yeah, family friend, right. So right. So Coco's doing quotes. Yes, for those who are listening. So, Yellow Mary, so she's a woman of independent means. In those days, the only way a woman could be independent was through becoming a sex worker.
Yep.
So, I didn't know that because I was like, why are they calling her a whore? Like, this is ridiculous. What were you talking about? And so, this again, they're doing things that they feel in their heart that they need to do in order to survive. Like, we're
Mhm.
talking about survival. And so, because even, I mean, Yellow Mary, like, she talks about the hardships that she has gone through, being someone who is independent, an
Yeah.
independent woman. And so this idea of being ruined, there's so much of that that's kind of like a reoccurring theme,
Mm.
especially when you're talking about women and what women are supposed to be, what they're not supposed to be. Again, going back to that idea of progress,
Mm.
right? Letting go of things, holding on to old ideas, old ways. And to me, the thing that was resistance was all in what Eula was saying is getting rid of that idea of a woman being ruined.
Yeah.
There's also, I guess, the symbol, again, doing research about this because I just found this so fascinating. There, at one point, there's a big parasol that washes up or just appears.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of things appearing, which we'll also talk about. But, like, it appears and you see it has holes. It looks like it's been shipwrecked. It's ruined, right? This parasol is ruined, but in that ruin they find use. They find use in what was ruined. So again, that the symbol of the parasol, the huge parasol that you see in the film, plus also the big speech that Eula gives towards the end of the film, I think was just beautiful in the way that it was brought together. And again, letting go of this notion of women for whatever has happened to them being ruined.
Yeah.
Thought that was beautiful. Yeah. Um, and with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back after a few moments. So, Coco, when we were talking about Yellow Mary before, you and True, her friend, you used quotes. I want to go back to that for a second. So, why did you use quotes there?
For me, I feel like their relationship was, like, deeper than just friends. Like, they ca like, when you bring people to come see family
Yeah.
members,
Yeah.
usually that's sometimes the case of, like, "This is my friend, but this
Hmm.
is somebody who's more than a friend." And that was my notion because of the
Yeah. I didn't.
talking for me, because of course
Yeah.
she's there,
Right.
and of course, I know Viola brought the photographer, but he's there to
Right.
take pictures.
Yeah.
Yellow Mary's bringing this person who's not
Right.
a like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she's
Yeah. Yeah.
new, and their level of comfortability, like,
Hmm. Right.
they're sitting in the tree, smoking a joint and talking,
Yeah.
and then, of course, when they're in the parasail and they're all, like, hugged to get
Hmm.
like, I feel like their friendship is a little deeper than
Okay.
just the
Okay.
friend, so that's why I was like,
And I never, I'm watching it, I never clocked that for a second because 'cause I'm just like, "Oh, this is a like, I'm thinking like it's one of those, like, in period pieces, you usually see like a friend, I'm thinking it's like because of course, I can't think of anything else because when I think of period piece, I think Pride and Prejudice. So, like, when you're seeing, like, her and her friend who, is ends up getting married to somebody who she doesn't care for, whatever, period piece girly here.
yeah.
And I'm thinking it's one of those, it's like, "Oh, this is a friend, who's, like, helping me." I never clocked that it might be her significant other,
Yeah, and of course, her being a sex worker would make a lot of sense.
you know?
Somebody who you can be completely transparent with without engaging in sexual
Mhm.
activities, but somebody you can have a deep
Yeah.
emotional so I always like I said, with this all these family members coming back to the island
Yeah. Yeah,
to
yeah.
meet up and take this photo and, connect with everyone who's gonna be coming up to the north,
Mhm.
people always bring friends or they
Mhm.
say it's friends around, and
Right.
usually most cases they're not just friends, you know? So that's why I was
Yeah.
like, and especially I think when they were what was it? It was the part with when the matriarch, she was having
Yeah.
them kiss the Bible and they were kinda going through their quorums about everything.
Mhm.
She was there and then
Uh-huh.
she runs off, so I felt like there was so much, because no friend would just
Mm.
run off just to run off. Like,
Right.
I feel like there was something deeper than just that, you
Yeah.
know? That
Like, it
you
was like this sacred time that let me step away or
Yeah,
something, or
so there I maybe that like I said, that's just from what I
yeah.
was getting, 'cause I was
Sure.
like, "Who is this person?" and everything. I'm like, "Oh,
Art is to interpretation, girl.
yeah,
Like,
you look."
and that adds a whole other dynamic, especially to the way that they were treating her, or the
Like,
both of them. Yeah.
yeah, like, she no kin of ours and anything, but
Mhm.
also just, like, their intimacy from just
Mhm.
little things like holding hands, being
Mhm.
close to each other,
Mhm.
coming on this trip with me to kind of confront or talk to relatives I haven't seen in years. She could just be a friend, but I think she's definitely more than a friend and a
Yeah.
support system with that, because when it comes to trauma,
Mhm.
people always wanna have people they feel comfortable with, and then that's what I was getting, so that's why I had my air quotes 'cause I was like, "Sure, just a friend?
Right,
Alright."
right, right. They were roommates.
Yeah. See?
So
That's how it always starts.
um, so going back a little bit also to timeless, when I think in terms of, like, when I said, that the film looks timeless, there's a lot of that, we're in the present, but we're also connected to the past, and we're also connected to the future, and, like, kind of like how time there's this, like, bending of time, and, I believe Julie Dash called it ancient to future. And so and even Nana, like, in the film, also makes a reference to them being connected to their ancestors across the ocean, and as
Mhm.
well as in the north, those going to the north, everything being connected. And so I wanted to talk about the visions that we saw of the unborn child. and so
Mhm.
she's narrating the film, and, I thought that was also very interesting because I'm like, I saw, like, in the opening credits, they give the name of the actress and then, unborn child. I'm like, "Unborn child? Like, how is the unborn child making," and so when she starts talking, I'm like, "Oh, okay, she's narrating." But
Mhm.
then we actually see her, like, running across the fields, running across the beach. At some point, she runs into, like, her mother, who's
Mhm.
Eula. There's a moment in the film, towards the beginning of the film, where Nana is actually talking to Eli, who is Eula's husband, because all this time he's questioning whether or not the baby's his, and this unborn child is, like, narrating to us, is
Yeah.
telling, "I want to prove to him,
That I'm his child.
that I'm his child," and I'm like, "Well, how is she going to," like, "How is she gonna do that?" And then I'm like, "Oh my god," so then she makes all these appearances, and then Nana is trying to tell Eli, "Talk to the ancestors.
Yeah.
Talk to the ancestors, connect to your ancestors." Right? And so, they're having, their back and forth and everything, and at some point, he does see his unborn child, and
Yeah.
it's the way that it's shot, the way that it's, again, used, like, throughout the film was just beautiful, again, talking about those those sorts of connections, and Coco, at some point, I mean, throughout the episode, you've been mentioning, being down in South Carolina and just all the things that you've learned, from your time spent down there and your family also being from there. I want you to talk about what you felt about, like, Ancient to Future, but I also wanna talk during your stay down there, if you learned about or saw any of these references to that sort of, how interconnectedness and how everything is connected past, present, and future.
Yeah. First, like, I that was something I really loved about the movie was that that's why I said the story I love the storytelling aspect of not of nonlinear
Mhm,
narration
mhm,
because it keeps you on your toes on what information is being presented and who's presenting that information, you know?
mhm.
And I was wondering, it sounds like, how they unborn child? Because of course, it's one thing to hear the child, but when you
Right.
see the child, like,
Just running across the lake.
and I think that was something I loved about that aspect of spirituality is, like, I feel like there's a whole thing on that. Especially with the part with the photographer, like, when he took the
Yeah.
photo and he saw her in the photo, and I
Yeah.
was like I saw that part, I was like, "Get out my head, get out my head, get out my head," and how we spiritual gifts add so much
Mhm.
to those things being able to see, and for him to be the photographer to see this child for a
Yeah.
second, and she's trying to prove to her daddy, "I'm your child," but the
Right.
photographer who has no ties to this family whatsoever besides, Viola and meeting her,
But the fact is it's the photographer who
could
can see
see
it.
her. He saw her, and of course, this ain't Imma let y'all know, this wasn't no digital camera. This was the old school analog. You won't get these aberrations type,
Yes.
like, film
Yeah.
photography, and I could have a whole conversation about that.
Yes.
But just for him to be able to see her, and of course, the color blue and her
Yeah.
bow, and she's running, like,
Mm.
and how many times we talk about our family and our ancestors, like, how much we look like our ancestors, like,
Mhm.
my family just got back from our family reunion. I was mad I didn't get the chance to go, but hearing the stories and talking about it and having my niece and nephews go down, like, they got to see their family and see where they come from. Like, my
Mhm.
mom, we've talked about how she looks like my grandfather, but she looks like my grandmother, but she looked like her great-great aunt, like, and how
Mhm.
much we
Mhm.
we don't see we see the physical, we don't see beyond the spiritual, and how much when we think about, like, religion, we only know what we do religiously. What do you do every single day? Your practice. How do you
Mhm.
show up every single day?
Mhm.
But the spirituality is like a whole different, like, thing. Like, there's so much beyond it, you know? And I feel like sometimes we don't get a chance to explore that. It's always demonized. Like, don't go to that, don't go with that. That's demonic. Don't
Mhm.
but that's stuff that our ancestors had. That's what they came on the boats with. That's
Yeah.
what kept them in tune, you know? And living in Charleston, like
Mm.
that whole me living in Charleston was a whole spiritual journey in itself. Like, I don't talk about it as much, but when I lived down there, I've learned a lot, like, a lot. And photography, like, this is why if you're gonna do photography, I always ask people, please learn the history about it because the history has its thing, but you have to understand why you're in it. There's a
Mhm.
whole thing behind it. There's a lot of healing and mending behind photography and the way it's being shown. There's a spiritual thing behind photography with
Mhm.
that, you know? So being able to live in Charleston, learn about the history, work on plantations, like, my northern butt coming down
Mm.
and being in the South and being on a plantation. Like, I had a friend, I love you, girl, I ain't gonna say a name, who had a hard time being there. She was mixed, and that was a lot for her. But
Mm.
for me, being told at the age of like maybe 5 and being named Coco, where it's like people are not going to like you for your
Mm.
complexion.
Mm.
People will do anything they can to hurt you, and you having that plight like on your head, but then
Mhm.
coming to see why was a lot. You know, working between big known plantations
Mhm.
and little known plantations are a huge difference on how people were treated on those plantations. You know, I getting to meet people like Joseph McGill from the Slave Dwelling Project, like, and his work was
Mhm.
a lot, and it was emotional. It was very emotional, especially from living situations and the quarters to how many people are living in a shanty to
Mm.
unmarked graves near water and people not knowing who their relatives are and their names and knowing that at least you know they're near the water so that their souls can go back home to Africa,
Mm.
coming into places and spaces where people have been working in those plantations because their ancestors stayed there even after liberation, and that's the only thing they knew.
Mhm.
That's a lot,
Yeah.
you know? And I like I said, I thank my mentor Heather, a white woman who was cognizant to everything and she wasn't dumb. She raised a lot of for a lot of people about some things, but there was a lot behind it.
Mhm.
And creating spaces and places for me and other photographers to see it. And not just photographers, storytellers,
Yes.
to tell people stories about these things and seeing it and even moving back to Rochester and carrying all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I came to Charleston by myself, but I left with some things.
Left with something.
I
A
did.
lot of things.
A lot of things, especially when it came to my work. Like,
Mhm.
the work I do, I know a lot of people love my work in photography, many people and some people don't. Guess what? The work isn't for you, it's for other people.
Yeah.
It's for the ancestors who didn't have a chance to have their voices heard.
Say that.
It's
Say
for
that.
the future generations. I have nephews and nieces. I wanna make sure they know who they come from
Yeah.
and where they come from,
Yeah.
you know? And that's the thing. Storytelling, like, this is why it's important to learn your history. That's why we talk about our elders. Our elders are the last bridge of a lot of these things we have left.
Yeah.
And I see why in the movie she was trying everything she could to hold on because she was the last.
Yeah.
The very last. Like, yeah, everybody else stays, but she's the one who knows what
That's
her
your tie.
ancestors,
That's your roots. Yeah.
you know? So, like, being able to go and see and like I said, I always have love for Charleston. Like,
Mhm.
I learned, like, going to school in the heart of the city, the same place where people were sold, bought, beaten, and killed, Market Street. Well, I could talk about Market Street all day, every day. You know, my going to the pineapple fountain where I'm out here drawing and learning how to draw stuff, knowing damn well my ancestor, excuse my French, was walking down the market.
Wow.
That's why I know my people. I may not. I, I'm from
Mhm.
the South. I'm from I'm
Yeah.
from the Carolinas.
Yeah.
That's low country,
Yeah.
ancestral trauma and liberation at the same time, trying to fight back for what is yours and just being seen as a person. All of it. I could talk about this. I might as well get my doctorate talking about this stuff at
Right.
this point.
That thing about Black
You know,
women always going back to
no,
get
no,
degrees.
degrees. You already told me not to. But you know, I swear,
We're bored one day and we're like, you
like,
know
you know what?
what? Let me go get another
Girl, I was
degree.
thinking about it today. I was like, you know what? I might go get another degree. I had a dream about it too. I was like, but Jackie ain't gonna let me do it.
No, and I've said the same thing. I've been like, I want to get
Go,
I want to get another degree in African American studies.
girl, do it. Don't do it.
With what money, Coco?
We're
No.
gonna figure it out. Don't worry, just faith in the dream and we got it. That's all you need.
Oh my god, man!
Boy,
Oh my lord!
I'm sorry, y'all.
No, this is what we do here on the Representation Cinema Podcast. Okay, there's gonna be a lot of history. There's gonna be a lot of laughs, right? It is all good. Yes. So if anyone wants to send funds, to us, just make sure you go to info@ourvoicesproject.com, right? So we can get this knowledge.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. Before but before we wrap up this episode, because we could, like I said, we're gonna have to just
Do
do a
the
whole
old
other like
we
deep
go,
dive into
yeah.
like the South, and especially seeing as how a lot is in the South,
Mhm.
and folks always feel like people, especially up here in the North, folks have a lot to say about the South, and there's usually a mix, but I feel like I often hear more bad than good, and the thing about it is like a lot of resistance movements, a lot of the things that we a lot of the things that we're constantly talking about, the civil rights movement, that started down south. There were slave revolts down south. Like, it happened down there. And so I'm like, if anything, you're talking about Coco, you're talking about the knowledge that you got being in Charleston. There's so much history that is down there. Like, it is worth trips. Like, I'm not just
Yes.
talking about a single trip, right? Because
No.
there's no way you could just do a single trip, right? There's multiple trips, right? To learn our history, to
Yep.
learn where we came from. Most of the when these slave ships came, they were coming into the
Virginia
Vir-
and Charleston
right,
and Georgia.
right.
Well, that's what we know. There's
Yeah.
also the other pockets that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were
yeah,
being
yeah.
brought
Yeah.
into, but those were like the major
Right,
ones.
right, exactly. And if I go into Ancestry right now, there's the maps on that show, where the likelihood of your family
Came through.
came through, yeah. So, there's so much of that, and of course, like, we can get into all of it, but when we're talking also too about going back to what Julie Dash was saying about her motivation for, making this film was because she wanted to see African Americans, she wanted to see Black people accurately represented. And I just feel like, we have so many stories, that come across, tables and desks and stuff that people are pitching. And, we can also go into the fact that Blade was scrapped. And girl, I know there's so many things. There's so many things, girl, we talk about that Wonder Man. Okay. Is
Ugh.
Ironheart season 2 even happening? Like, there's so many things. So many of these stories that center Black folks are getting scrapped, canceled, sidelined, all these different things. Julie Dash was someone who talks about constantly in interviews where she was saying, like, I never set out to be this Hollywood, like, director. And I mean, and she would have, as I'm sure she has been having because she's continuing to create. But what a time. Like, what a time it has been, what a time it is now to have authentic representation, especially of African Americans, of Black people, in film on the big screen. With all of that being said, I just like want to hear from you as we, of course, usually ask at the end of our podcast episodes here. What is the kind of representation, if our Voices Project, had the means, Lord willing, if if our Voices Project has, or as I know my Arab friends would say, inshallah. Anyway, but like, what is the kind of representation if we had the means, if our Voices Project had the means to fund the project, so and then make sure that it wouldn't get sidelined, that it would be seen amongst the masses, especially us, right? Us seeing ourselves on the big screen in an authentic way. What is the kind of representation that you would want to see?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, I know, I know.
Oh, I was like,
It
wait.
was my long-winded way of asking what kind of representation you wanted to see. ADHD.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought you were asking the audience. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good question. I'm like, oh, sorry. You know, like I said, more Black storytellers and the support they need to keep telling these stories. Like, these are very important because thinking about this Blade movement getting scrapped, I'm like, if we had a Black director, just wouldn't have been a problem. We're gonna have to figure this out or something. Like, I don't know. Like, just more passion projects to keep going. Like, I understand with money and resources being non-existent and not being able to create a lot
Mhm,
of good bodies of work, but that doesn't mean that these stories don't deserve to be
mhm.
told. Just finding out even for her, you only got like maybe 12 hours of sunlight before you have to kind of,
Yeah.
you know, go on to the next thing. But at the same time, the light's constantly changing. So you have to use this way of making films.
Mhm,
But at the same time, look at what it came out with. Something so not saying simple, but like something that wasn't able to be lightly lidded with artificial lighting, being
right.
able to still have hold on people 30 years later.
Mm,
You know? Um, not letting people tell you what you can and can't do
Yeah.
and being able to just do it.
Yeah. Are there any specific stories or one specific, like, thing about, like, culture or history or anything that you would be like, "No, we need to have this in a film." Like yeah.
Well, what were we gonna say? Sorry.
I was gonna just gonna say, b bring on the black alt.
I was gonna say that too. I was like, more Black alt stories because I feel like
Please.
there's so much.
African folklore.
Yes, like, there's so
Yes.
much more Black mysticism, like, more things of,
Yes.
like, magical Negroes, like
Oh my gosh. Don't
I
even
have to.
get me
We
started.
need
We
more.
can't just have, like, our own magical, like, thing, like, it's gotta be in you know what? Just
That's
it
why I
is
said it because I was like, we need more, like, we need diversity in, like,
Yeah,
how we're being presented. Because 'cause I'm like, we were this is why I like your alt project because 'cause you're
yeah,
giving Black alts a chance to be seen and
yeah,
heard, and I was thinking, I was like, "Dang, like, there's so many people Black alts that listen to rock, there's so many that listen to EDM, there's so many that listen to,
yeah,
like, there's so many of us, and we just need more representation of us in
yeah.
these places and spaces, and not just one, but more, like, we need
Right.
more of it, and
Yeah.
then some more with, like
I mean, like,
yeah.
Hobie Brown in Across the Spider-Verse, like, I was like, "Is this the first?" I mean, like, I know it's not the first, but in recent
Hmm.
memory that I'm looking at, I'm going, "That Hobie Brown is a Black alt character. That's Black alt." Like, that's yeah. And that's
That's
just one interpretation, like, there's so
yeah.
many different,
That's how
things
I
under
felt
that, but
about Donald, especially when they were, like, Donald for Spider-Man. I'm like,
yeah, now
"Come
he's
on now."
Uncle Aaron. Yes,
Like,
listen,
but
make it happen.
I think he made it in, like, the little things, and I'm so
Yeah.
mad, and he's kind of aged out, but not really, but I'm also like, he's a dad now, so it's like,
Yeah.
but they shoulda did it when they did, but they didn't, so it is what it is, but it's good because that means more people have the opportunity to make things happen, so there somebody else might have to take the mantle for a live action Black Spider-Man movie. I don't know.
You know? I think Tom Holland was actually he just in an interview said that he would want the next Spider-Man to be
But
Miles Morales.
yes, they
And
need to, yeah, even
yes.
though so we
Come
need
on.
a live action Miles Morales story with
Let's
the
go.
best sneakers ever. He's
Yes.
on it. All we do I would love one last thing.
Yeah.
This is for my weebs, my anime weebs. We need more Black anime.
Yeah.
Like, more adaptations, please. Like, if we could get magical Negroes, can we please have some Black anime weebs in here somewhere? Like, we are here. We've been waiting. Megan cannot be the only person right now.
Yes. There's so many.
There
There's so many.
is. But
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, yeah, we definitely need more of that for sure. Awesome. How can people support you, Coco?
well, you can follow me on my social media platforms at by Coco Ray, ByCocoARae. You can also visit me on my website at www.cocoa, put a dash in the middle, rae.com, and support me there. You can support me at any of the events I'm hosting or any events that are being hosted in my space, The Perp. If you don't know about The Perp, follow The Perp on social media as well, DAPURP. Yeah.
She's also on Peerspace. Wait,
I
you're still on Peerspace, right?
yes, I
Yes,
am.
okay, I was just gonna say, yeah. Yes, The Perp is also on Peerspace in Rochester, New York.
Yep.
Find it, support a support an artist, support a Black filmmaker, storyteller, all of the things. Yes. So, no, this has been such a great it's always good. Like I said, you're not a guest, you're just fam. At this point, you're a regular. So, appreciate you, Coco, of course, for joining the podcast tonight. Listeners, we'll have information about Coco in the show notes or in the description below, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, about where you can support her. Um, and also, oh, you before I forget, you also mentioned slave dwelling project?
Yes, the Slave Dwelling Project,
Okay.
which was founded by Joseph McGill.
Okay.
He is an amazing individual. This man has slept in not one, not two, not three, but over 100 slave dwellings in the United States. And he also hosts these sleepovers to talk about the enslaved folk in these slave dwellings. This man is one of the greatest. He is amazing. He's a Black man. Please support him and
Mm.
all that he's doing and learn your history.
Amazing. Like I said, we'll have that in the show notes or the description below on YouTube. Wherever you're listening from, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a 5-star rating, share this episode, and leave a comment to let us know what you thought of tonight's episode. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Visit ourvoicesproject.com to find out more about what we do. Sign up for our newsletter. We'll be back with more episodes continuing our Black August series, including Paris is Burning, which you can watch on HBO Max and Tubi before tuning in to our next episode. This has been Jackie McGriff, your host for this episode of Representation in Cinema. As always, thank you for listening.